and welcome. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, good morning and welcome. My name is Andy Hunthausen. I'll be chairing the meeting today. To my left is Commissioner Tom Rolfe.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Tom's left is Brandi Spangler, who will be taking care of us today. Thank you, Brandi. My right, Commissioner Candace Payne. Good morning. Nico Hash and Keegan Shea, Deputy County Attorneys, and Roger Baltz, our Chief Administrative Officer. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
There is a sign-in sheet in the front as well as agendas. Please sign in prior to leaving today so we have a good record of who's attended our public meetings. We will start with our consent action items, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Baltz for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. This is item number 2 on the agenda today. You have one item. It's 2A, public meeting minutes for October 31 and November 5, 2024, and staff recommends approval of that item. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you very much. Any questions, Commissioners? How about public comment on the consent action item? Any public comment? Public comment. Seeing none, is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve action item 2A as presented by Mr. Baltz.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Moved and seconded to approve consent action item 2A as presented. Further discussion, Commissioners? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is a presentation from agencies proposing to serve as the Community Reinvestment Organization for Lewis and Clark County. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ann McCauley, Director of Grants and Purchasing. So before you today is going to be 2 presentations from 2 organizations that are both proposing to be the Community Reinvestment Organization for Lewis and Clark County. In the 2023 State of Montana Legislature, House Bill 819 was passed. This is a bill that aims to address the state's workforce housing crisis by making housing more attainable for the workforce. Part of that program is the Montana Community Reinvestment Plan, and that was an initial investment of $50 million by the state to carry out this attainable workforce housing initiative. The vehicle for this is through community reinvestment organizations. And those are the 2 proposals you'll hear today. The program works by setting up a revolving loan fund, and that's what the CROs will be responsible for doing, administering that, with 95% of those funds going to the purchase of attainable workforce housing and only up to 5% being for startup and administrative costs of the CRO. And no money can be used for pre-construction, development, or construction-related purposes. There is a match required with this $50 million that the state set aside. It is the one-to-one or 100% match requirement. And the way that it got allocated out to counties or regions is based on the gross domestic product of those regions. CROs must be established no later than December 31st, 2024, and then certified by the Governor's Economic Development Office by January 15. Each county can opt in to only one CRO. You can't select multiple CROs. And if a county chooses to not opt in to a CRO, then those funds allocated to it would go to those counties in the state that are opting in. Any questions kind of about just kind of the basic summary of the program?
Probably. Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Payne.
Go back and talk about, I'm pretty sure I heard you say these funds cannot be used for construction or to create more housing, is the way I interpret it, only to acquire what's already in place. Is that correct?
It's for the funds directly through this program, as I read it in the bill, is that they can go to down payment or mortgage relief for the home buyer. It would not be directly going to the construction or development of the housing.
Thank you.
And
Any other questions at this point?
Mr. Chair, if I might, I see a deed restriction on the notes we have here. Is that where is that located in the enabling legislation? Do you recall right offhand?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Rolfe, I do not know where that is specifically in the legislation. I imagine one of our presenters here today could point you directly to it.
Okay.
But that is a piece that's in there with respect to deed restrictions.
Right. I'd like to kind of explore that a little bit more. I kind of have a philosophical problem with a deed restriction. I remember a time in my own life when we were kind of starting over and finally got to put enough money together to get a house, and then it was that inflationary increase that helped us to move forward and eventually turn that into income property. And I just think that if we take away the right to take advantage of inflation from the people that need it the most, that it may be it's probably not doing the right thing to help people. And so I'd like to have a little discussion about that if we could.
Commissioner, I think it's in section 14 of the law, if I read it right here, financing and deed restrictions. I haven't studied it thoroughly, but that's where you might find some information as we go along here. Another question, or just, I guess, a comment, some summation, if you will. This opportunity, the state legislature set aside $50 million. We as a county have to opt in, and it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.5 million, 3.4 million, or something of that. Somebody can tell us the exact number, but that money could go toward reducing housing costs or entry for folks that need it in our community, in our county, in our area. And so this is an opportunity, but we have to opt in according to the law. And then we also have to partner with a CRO. And so that's what we're talking about today. So we don't have opportunity necessarily, whether we like parts of the law or not. We probably don't have any opportunity to deal with that here today, but we sure can talk about it, as Commissioner Rolfe has brought up, that there might be some parts of it that he's not happy with, though we'll have to go back to the legislature if we want that changed. So am I on target there? That's what we're doing here today?
Mr. Chair, you're very on target. Thank you for that summary.
Okay.
And Commissioner Rolfe, I respect that comment, but I believe Commissioner Chair Hunthausen's correct, and that the legislature is written the way it is at this point, and that would require a change.
Either take it all or not take it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we don't opt in, we lose the $3.5 million that would be designated for our area.
Yes.
And that would go maybe to other areas of the state. It would still be used, obviously, and maybe benefit, but not our community necessarily. So,
Mr. Chair, correct. And just to clarify, these funds will not come through the Lewis and Clark County at all, through like our finance system, I mean. They're going to be fully, that revolving loan fund's going to sit with the selected CRO.
so another question I think that will probably come up today, and might as well talk about it now, and so that the folks are prepared for that as they come up as well. The county's responsibility in this is really our responsibility, this part of just selecting a CRO and opting in. We have no other obligation. We can choose to get involved financially, but we have no obligation to get involved financially. It doesn't, correct? Is that?
Mr. Chair, correct. Yes.
Okay.
There's no obligation beyond this selection today, which will be done by resolution.
So that 100% match, it's not county match necessarily.
It does not need to be, correct.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Any other questions at this point, commissioners?
I was a little concerned about a match from the county. The county is not involved, but we've got to come up with a match, but you have clarified that. Thank you.
With that, I'd like to present our first presenter here today. Mark Taylor will be representing the HAB Development Organization, and then we'll have him followed by Maureen Rude and Hannah Tester from NeighborWorks, Montana.
Fantastic. Welcome. If you'd introduce yourself for the record, you have the floor. Thanks for coming today.
Great. Good morning, commissioners. For the record, Mark Taylor. I'm actually an attorney here in Helena. I'm a principal at Taylor Luther Group. Ironically, this is the first time, I think, in 30 years that I've been doing this that I've actually appeared before the commission. Just real quick on tackling some of the outstanding questions that were posed. The county or the CRO has to come up with a match to opt into the program. I'll start to elaborate here in a little bit, but what was contemplated by the legislature is that match be identified as a part of the opt-in process as well. So counties effectively had 18 months to come up with the matching monies in order to opt into the program. Commissioner Rolfe, I hear you loud and clear on the deed restriction, but Ann is correct. It's a statutory requirement that we can't get around. Just from a policy standpoint, though, I think it's important to note that the people that are participating in the program effectively have zero money into the program. So the monies, both the county monies and then the matching monies, go to buy down the mortgage. And that's where the monies actually come. So if you think about it, at the closing is when the state monies are matched with the CRO's monies to actually buy down the cost of a mortgage, is how this program will ultimately work, or as what is contemplated by the legislature. But the legislature was very clear when the bill was amended in the appropriations process to require a county matching solution or component to it. As a bit of background, our firm represents the Hospitality and Development Association of Montana, which has a footprint of literally billions of dollars of development activity across the state of Montana. And it was through that organization, coupled with kind of an informal coalition of bankers, builders, realtors, business owners, the Montana Chamber and others, that we put together House Bill 819. My partner, Jesse Luther, was actually the principal drafter of House Bill 819, working closely with both Representatives Green and Representative Tuss. Representative Tuss is actually the head of Bear Paw Economic Development up on the High Line, so he's got a front row seat to some of these challenging issues. And it was really through that effort that we ultimately put together the MCRP, or the Community Reinvestment Plan, portion of House Bill 819. I guess in terms of specific details, and I'm happy to answer any questions, we know more about House Bill 819 than anybody. We know what conversations occurred, the legislative intent behind the bill, et cetera. After enactment, we, at the request of Paul Green and Paul Tuss, we actually put together and staffed an advisory council to look at the implementation of House Bill 819 and the MCRP portion of that bill. I will tell you, as a part of that effort and exercise, the only organization or person that meaningfully was investigating the matching component was Patty Webster in HAB Development, or Homefront. And Homefront is the largest housing authority in the state of Montana, located in Billings, and HAB Development is the 501c3 development arm of Homefront. Patty invested tens of thousands of dollars in legal research, initially attempting to look at utilization of volume cap bonds as a potential matching component. Although that could have occurred, the legal gymnastics to go down that path were so significant that didn't make a good fit. So then she ultimately started looking at private investment, and she was able to secure that private investment. Earlier this year, she went out for an RFP for professional services, to which our firm responded to that RFP and are here supporting HAB Development. So Patty Webster has secured actually more than $50 million because of the statewide workforce, or the state workforce components within House Bill 819, to give every county an opportunity to participate in the program. It was a commitment that she made to Paul Green and Paul Tuss, that if she was able to actually come up with the matching funds, that she wouldn't leave any county behind. So we have that obligation today. We are going to be meeting with the Governor's Office of Economic Development this afternoon to present the source of those matching funds, consistent with our application process and submittals to that office. Hab Development is one of 3 organizations which have applied to be a CRO. I was talking with Lou Jones recently about the implementation of House Bill 819, and he was asking how it was going. And he shared that he had sent an email to the governor's office in the end of October, which I think is instructive to counties in making their CRO decisions. And I'm just going to read the substantive parts of that email. As this is progressing, the counties have between now and the end of the year to officially opt into the program and select their CRO. As you may recall, the legislature required that there be a matching component for those counties who opt into the program, regardless of whether the county or their chosen CRO is the source of those funds. It is critical that the source of those funds should be identified by each county at the time of their opting into the program to make sure the integrity of the program is maintained. Counties have had since the end of the session to identify the source of their matching funds. Commissioner Payne has been around the legislative process a long time. Lou Jones is, he's served since 2005. He was the appropriations chair last session when these decisions were made. He was selected as the appropriations chair for the upcoming legislative session as well. So at least that's his perspective, which I think is instructive to you all. I think the other organizations that have applied to be CROs are first-class organizations, both NeighborWorks Great Falls and NeighborWorks Montana. I have done, their body of work speaks for itself. But really our approach to this has been different than some of those organizations. Most notably, Hab Development, we can provide the matching funds on day one. So we can literally get started. We don't have to wait and see or whether or not we can raise those matching funds at a subsequent point in time. And with all due respect, a plan or a strategy is not a source of funds. We have to actually come forward with real meaningful dollars if we're going to protect the integrity of this program heading into the legislative session. I think that's fairly important and is also reflective of the Lou Jones email that I just read. After Hab Development, part of our program is to immediately engage in a community outreach program at a local level. We can do that starting in Q1, effectively January 1. We will start that activity once we know the total amount of dollars that we have to work with. And we will actively start implementing the program in Q2. We don't have to wait for any money. We don't have to wait for any administrative actions to actually get people into their homes for the first time. I'm of the belief that Hab Development will be approved, if not today, hopefully by the end of the week, which will make us the first approved CRO in the state. Again, we'll have our source of those funds will be provided to the Governor's Office of Economic Development. And we are physically moving forward in the counties that have already approved Hab Development, and those are significant at this point. I think we'll be up closer to 20 plus counties before the end of the week is over, would be my guess. Also of some note is how the House Bill 819 was kind of broken down was at the CRDC regional level. The CRDC region for this area, both of the other two counties, Broadwater and Marr County, have both selected Hab Development as their CRO already. So Lewis and Clark is the only one that hasn't made a decision relative to that, but Broadwater and Marr, not that that is definitive for sure, but that shares with you the perspective of where others within your region are headed. Lastly, I would just say that as applied to the Hab Development platform, we really view this as phase one. We have some pretty aggressive goals in terms of subsequent phases that don't necessarily rely upon government money once the HAB development platform is up and operational. On behalf of Patty Webster, she wants to make sure that I extend to you her desire to serve the people of Lewis and Clark County, to help people get into their first-time homes typically, and work with community stakeholders to do that. And I'm available for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Appreciate you being here today. There probably will be a few questions. Commissioner Payne, please, you can start us out.
Good morning. Nice to see you again. I'm concerned about the source of funds. It's been all over the newspapers and media how the Chinese are trying to buy up the whole country, and you're disclosing the source of your funds to our friends in state government, but not to the county folks where it's it's the county's money too. So do other entities other than have development, do they provide information on the source of the funds?
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Payne, through the review process in the Governor's Office of Economic Development is where that kind of back and forth occurs in terms of identifying the source of funds. I will tell you that there is nothing nefarious. The source of our funds is, I'm happy to show you all at some point, but until we actually are approved as a CRO, it's been, premature to disclose that, and secondarily, until we get to January 1 and we actually know what the total outlier is for the source of our funds, so we can be more specific in that disclosure. But I can tell you unequivocally that I can show you on letterhead of senior leadership with a nationally recognized financial institution, we have access to way more than $50 million to participate in this program.
I'm still uncomfortable borrowing money from somebody we have no idea who it is. I think of my dear old dad, the rancher, and he'd say, no, you got to know who your lender is. Just know whether you can trust him or not. I'm sure that's old school thinking, but it just causes me some heartburn. So.
Yeah. Until we get through the CRO application process at the Governor's Office of Economic Development, we haven't really shared the source of those matching funds. But I'm happy after today to hopefully to be in a position to share that with participating counties.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So
go ahead.
And Patty is not trying to hide the ball.
No.
I mean, and please don't take it as such. It's just that she needs to protect the integrity of her program and that she has devised in the platform, because she has invested a lot of time, energy, and financial resources to put that platform together.
Just a remark.
Hey.
We are required by our friends at the legislature to be absolutely clear as to everything we do. We've got to videotape it. We can't have a conversation between two of the commissioners. But they are thinking that we're going to approve this, and I'm sure I'm always looking for the worst thing. And it seems a little clandestine to me, but I don't see how they can have it both ways, where the legislature says, by golly, we will be absolutely clear on everything. Oh, except this one little program over here for 50 million. We don't have to disclose any of that. Our taxpayers expect us to have full disclosure, I've got some concerns. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do if you don't have to respond, you ready for the next question, or do you want anything? Okay, Commissioner Rolfe.
All right.
Please.
Just a question, if I understand you're right, the source of your funds will be revealed to the public once you are accepted as a CRO officially by the state government, right?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Rolfe, that's correct. We will disclose the source of those matching funds. And as reflected in the Lou Jones email, even, he's looking for that for legislative disclosure purposes as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rolfe. Just a couple of things. Appreciate the presentation, you being here today, and appreciate the work you've done to get this bill across the finish line. I think we're all happy that there's $50 million to invest in our state. So, but in terms of this process, what came up for me right away when I started reading the information and all of that, and who might be eligible, and as you have pointed out already, your organization as well as the two NeighborWorks Montana organizations are the three eligible entities. And what I looked at right away is who's working in our community already, what kind of partnerships are there that exist, how could that those dollars be leveraged from a community-based perspective, how are our nonprofits that are doing this work in the community already going to benefit from this, and how can they do the work on the ground? They already have the relationships going. So that's the same question I'm going to ask the other group, but what kind of infrastructure do you already have on the ground here? I mean, I understand that Patty does great work in Billings, and this organization is now, you've got you and others probably working statewide, but I don't know of any work that Patty's done in Helena, or what kind of relationship she has here in Helena or in Lewis and Clark County. So that is an interest of mine. The other question, I'll just lay them both out there, is that you talked about Lou Jones and his email. From my perspective, that's his view of the thing. There's no requirement to have the match identified and laid out prior to the end of the year, right? You could, for example, your organization could say, we've got lots of people interested in match, and we're going to do it project by project if you wanted to. Is that correct? And if it's not correct, I'm reading it improperly. But anyway, I'll stop there. If I have more questions, I'll jump in. But go ahead, Mr. Stan.
Yeah. So answering the first question first, Mr. Chairman, HAB development is aggregating statewide resources in collaborations with significant stakeholder partners, whether it's realtors, builders, developers, et cetera, to deploy this program at a statewide level. This was really designed as a private sector solution as contemplated by the legislature, which is why you don't see a ton of government oversight associated with the program. Paul Green, the bill sponsor, was pretty clear about that. This wasn't supposed to be a grow government program, and the legislature that approved it agreed with that philosophy. And so Patty has significant resources to bear, both in terms of design, construction, development, et cetera, that will be brought to bear. And we're having active conversations with notable construction folks, including Dick Anderson Construction at a local level. So in terms of footprints in Helena, it doesn't get any bigger than Dick, for sure. So rest assured that this isn't going to be a superimposed when we talk about community outreach to stakeholders. It will be a community outreach to stakeholders, and stakeholders will be involved in that discussion. The counties that have already selected HAB, we're off to the races in that community engagement. And some of those conversations include dialogues with local public schools. And what does that look like? And so we're going to probably do some pilot programs with public schools associated with the implementation of this program. So those are the things that we'll bring to the table. It's not a one size fits all. We would invite commission participation in that dialogue for sure. Relative to your second question, I can tell you unequivocally, the intention of the legislature was the county had to have the money when they opted into the program. To allow the program to just spin out for an unlimited period of time was not what the legislature contemplated. Whether that is clear or not, through the terms of statutory construction, if there is ambiguity, the intent, if you wanted to call Paul Grain, who's now the Director of Commerce, he'd tell you that the money, the purpose of the delay on the CRO side wasn't to have the application process, be last year. He wanted to give time to raise the money or identify the source of the matching money for when counties were actually opting into the program.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. There may be further questions. I have one more comment, which, this side note and actually a joke, but, you brought up Mr. Tuss. That's one of my biggest problems with this, because it's the only election I ever lost was, for the mayor of our town at Boise State, to Paul Tuss. I still hold a grudge, you can tell. No, he's a great friend. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for having us here today. I am Hannah Tester, NeighborWorks Montana. I've been at NeighborWorks Montana for 10 years. Before that, I was a housing counselor, homebuyer educator up in the Flathead. I now live down in Frenchtown, just outside of Missoula with my family. At NeighborWorks Montana, I oversee our single-family lending, housing counseling, homebuyer education programs that we run statewide. I also oversee our work with our Native Homeownership Coalition that does work statewide. I'm joined today by my colleague. Do you want to introduce yourself? Okay.
Hi, I'm Maureen Rude. I live here in the county, and I've worked in housing finance for about 35 years. Board of Housing, Fannie Mae, NeighborWorks Montana. I did retire from NeighborWorks Montana, but I led the lending program there for 12 and a half years while we grew the fund quite a bit. I'm retired, but I'm working with NeighborWorks Montana on this because I feel like it's really important. And my area of expertise is really program development, loan product development, and housing finance.
I gave you all some paperwork today, just to sort of outline NeighborWorks Montana's goals in this space. So you did hear a little bit about House Bill 819 as the legislature lays out the bill. The program pillars are 30% of homebuyer assistance, 30% of the cost of the home. In exchange for this, homeowners do agree to an equity cap of 1% per year. That's the deed restriction that was discussed earlier. Eligible households are between 140% or between 60% and 140% of the area median income. And then, as has been discussed, the program does require a 1-to-1 match. The program also, or the legislation also describes community reinvestment organizations, or CROs, that are going to be the overseers of this program. That type of organization didn't exist before this bill. So again, as was discussed, there are 3 that are applying to become CROs for the state. CROs do take on all that responsibility for match and program oversight. So I'd love to talk a little bit about NeighborWorks Montana and our expertise in this space. And I'd love to do that as it pertains to our impact in Lewis and Clark County. We do run, as I discussed earlier, statewide homebuyer education and housing counseling programs. We are a HUD intermediary organization, which means we get federal and state, as well as some private dollars to support organizations statewide that do that direct service of homebuyer education, housing counseling. Our partner in Lewis and Clark County is Rocky Mountain Development Corporation. In the last 10 years, Rocky has served just about 3,000 individuals with homebuyer education, housing counseling, homebuyer preparedness, financial coaching, post-purchase services, and foreclosure counseling. NeighborWorks Montana has secured about $380,000 during that time period to support that work with Rocky. NeighborWorks Montana runs 3 different down payment assistance programs. Through those programs, we have served, again, in the last 10 years timeline, 69 loans, so 69 home buyers within Lewis and Clark County, totaling about $1.5 million lent. That money has leveraged about $12 million to homeownership in Lewis and Clark County. We do have real estate development and acquisition lending as well, where we lend gap financing for real estate development projects. You can see listed on your sheet there in green all of the real estate development projects that we have done in Lewis and Clark County. We've lent about $1.5 million, preserved 148 homes, and leveraged $40 million on those projects. We have the other program that we run through NeighborWorks Montana to support housing and housing stability is a shared equity program called Resident Owned Communities, or ROC. So if you look in your little blue section on this paper, we're just trying to show the representation that we do have in Lewis and Clark County. We have our 2 staff members are on that, that are in Helena, are on that ROC program. We also have 4 committee members and 4 board members that help guide the organization that live in Lewis and Clark County as well. We are approved by 3 different jurisdictions, Lewis and Clark County being one of them, Helena and Lincoln, to run our down payment assistance state home program. So through that down payment assistance program, we work closely with city staff, and that was approved by resolution. NeighborWorks Montana also hosts the annual housing conference last held in Helena in 2023. So just some of our impacts in the community. I wanted to touch a little bit about match. Wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything before I move on to that. So the match is an order of operations issue for NeighborWorks Montana. We want to make sure that we have an approved program and we are an approved CRO before we're signing agreements with investors. Our ability to raise capital and deploy money is not an issue. That's been our business model for 25 years. We've done it successfully for 25 years. So it is not a concern for us to raise the match. We just need to make sure we have an approved program through the state to make sure we understand the return that we can promise to investors. So that's the order of operations issue that we're working through right now. I just wanted to discuss our balance sheet to sort of put any minds at ease that our ability to raise match. It's what we're very good at it. It's what we do. Our balance sheet right now shows $6.4 million cash on hand. Of the $6.4 million, $2.5 million is available right now for flexible lending activities under NeighborWorks Montana's current loan policies. Another $8.5 million is committed to lending activities from Intermountain Health, the Montana Healthcare Foundation, and the Montana Community Foundation. So that's just in the last couple of months. That $6.5 million on top of that is that $8.5 million that has been earmarked. NeighborWorks Montana is discussing investments with existing financing partners and investors, but we do need that CRO approval and program approval, which again comes mid-January, before we can move forward with more formal investor commitments. So I think that, did you want to add anything?
Well, just a couple things that came up earlier in questions. So the deed restriction that you mentioned, NeighborWorks Montana does deed restrictions on all of its funds. And basically those deed restrictions say the money has to be paid back and what the limitations of that payback are. So for example, the state home program that NeighborWorks Montana currently runs in Lewis and Clark County has a shared appreciation calculation that's done. So if the state home loan, I'm going to be really simple here. I realize my numbers are unrealistic, but if the state home program had put in 30,000 of 100,000 at the time the home is sold, the state home program gets back 30% of the appreciation. The borrower gets the 70% back for the part that they got a conventional first mortgage. That's very standard in the lending industry. Shared appreciation is very common. It's often that what they call the standard percentage. So whatever amount is put in, whatever percentage is put in is what comes back. At that point, then the deed restriction goes away when the home is sold. So it doesn't keep it from being a free market sale. It just keeps it so that that money comes back to the program at the end. So I just wanted to clarify that. The other thing that I wanted to clarify is my job working with NeighborWorks Montana has really been creating the loan program. So it's ready to roll as soon as the CRO approval and the counties are in line. We already have a program description. It's in your packet. We can work with the 1% limitation or the 1% appreciation, although the conventional markets would not accept it as written. And I've told Mr. Blaisdell at the state that there are some workarounds that would have to be made to get the borrower back their closing costs of the sale, their principal payments that they made on that first mortgage and any down payment they put in. So there are some issues with the way the bill is written. There is a workaround that the conventional Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac would accept and have right in their guidelines. And so we've done a ton of research on making sure the program can actually have first mortgages that would be saleable on the secondary market. NeighborWorks Montana has been approved as a nonprofit mortgage lender for many, many years, 20 plus. So we'll continue to work on that to make sure the program is ready to roll as soon as we have that ability, and we work with lenders every day. So that's part of our business model.
The other thing I did want to add real quick is NeighborWorks Montana is also a CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution, which is a designation for financial institutions that is an agreement to serve underserved communities. And that CDFI designation does allow us access to a good amount of capital that non-CDFI organizations don't have access to. Happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. I'm sure there will be a few questions. Would you like to start again, Commissioner Payne? We'll keep it in the same order.
I kind of feel like I'm just drinking from a fire hose. This is way out of my realm of experience. My initial question is, when do your investors get their money back? I mean, do they ever get repaid, or is this?
So yes is the answer. It would be on when the home turns over. So
when the first time home buyer with money from this program, they live there for 20 years and then they sell the house, and that's at that point, is the investor getting interest, or I mean?
So the NeighborWorks Montana currently has programs that are deferred loans, which are similar to this. Those are funded with federal money or grant money because there is no return until the home is paid off. NeighborWorks Montana has a number of programs that do carry interest rates and a number of investments from banks and other financial institutions that carry an interest rate that's paid regularly. I don't know how you do that with this because the average home, people stay in their homes an average of 11 years. So that's part of where I think NeighborWorks Montana has the strength of bringing in a pretty big pool of money that doesn't carry interest rates. That's from either foundations or other CDFI funds and federal funds that can be used to cover those early years. Our analysis shows it's going to take about 5 years for there to be a real return. So that I think complicates the investment side of it. personally.
Okay, so it is complicated.
Yes.
And
Yes.
okay, so in my history, you know, you buy a house and you live there for 25, 30 years till you die or have to go in the nursing home or whatever. And so I don't see the turnover, which would generate the income, which would bring in legitimate lender or investors, but that's above my pay grade. You guys ask.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Rolfe.
I guess the question I would have is, if I understand you right, you do not have the money in hand to go forward yet. You're waiting to get that as you, once you become designated a CRO by the state.
Correct.
Is
We
that right?
have some, we're working on, the program that we have, submitted in our CRO application. We're talking about a revolving match, so, we may be able to move forward with that. If the requirement is to have match, when we sign whatever the CRO agreement, to become a CRO, then we'll work with current investors that we have to redirect that investment to this program.
Second question, apparently neither one of the organizations presenting to us are officially CROs at this point. Is that right?
No, that happens at the end of the year.
And but are they're not designated by the state as eligible to be CROs?
We're qualified according to the bill, to the language in the bill.
But you don't have your money at this point, the matching money.
No, you're right. We've got some, but not all. We did not apply for the whole state. We applied for 30 counties. So if we got all of those counties, it would be $30 million. What we're looking at right now with our county approvals is about 18 million that we'd have to raise, and if we included Lewis and Clark County in that. So yeah, that's where we are. We didn't apply for the counties that we knew our sister organization, NeighborWorks Great Falls, was going to apply for. And then we knew Southeastern Montana, that HAB was going to be there. So we didn't apply for those counties. HAB ended up applying for the whole state. And so we applied for the economic districts that are sort of outside of those districts that those two organizations are in.
Okay. So I guess if neither one of you have your funds and you're both waiting to be designated by the state, maybe we're premature in making a decision until one or
It's
both of them have
complicated.
been
Yeah.
designated. Yep, I'm just
Finish your
wondering,
question.
Apologies.
I'm just
sorry.
wondering if that isn't the proper way to go about it.
It is complicated because the requirement is that counties onboard before the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And then programs will be approved in January.
But you would not be designated till January?
We would be designated, their deadline is at the end of the year, end of December. So we're doing things all at once. You're right. Yeah.
I think the critical date, as Mr. Taylor recognized, is that if counties don't onboard with somebody by the end of the year, then you're out, basically.
Right.
So it does seem like an order of business, as Hannah said, things aren't necessarily done in what we might think would be the best order, but this is what we've got. It's the first time the state's put significant funds into a home ownership program in my 35-year history. And so it's an excellent opportunity, and the program could help a lot of people. So while it might seem a little backwards, the order of operation, we're trying to give it the best shot we can to get the money out to home buyers.
Right. So just if there's an opportunity to clear up confusion here, there has been a step that's already happened. So there are only 3 organizations statewide that are eligible, right, to become the certified with whatever counties decide to opt in. Counties have to opt in by the end of the year, and then those 3 organizations will get their state final designation sometime in January. Is that
Correct.
Okay. That's not correct. So we'll have you back up in a second to help us out with that if you would, but, so anything else on that?
Final designation happens December 30th. Program approvals happen mid-January.
Okay. All right. Any other questions right now? All right, I'll ask a couple. So your work in Lewis and Clark County. So you talked about it a little bit, but you've done work in the past. My comfort level for this is whether you walk in the door like Mr. Taylor said with the match money. In our county, I'm worried about that 3.5 million or whatever the number is, approximately 3.5 million. And or someone who's done this a lot and has proven to show that they can come up with the match money for all different kinds of projects. And I think that's what you've been talking about a little bit. So can you talk about just the work and the partners that you've worked with in Lewis and Clark County? I kind of asked that same question, Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, we work, so in our single family lending programs, we work with all the financial institutions. So the way folks access our funding is going through their first mortgage lender and going through their housing counselor. So our work is really based on collaboration and partnerships. So we establish those partnerships. So Rocky Mountain Development is a close partner. We partner with Habitat for Humanity here. And I guess anything else you would add to that? I mean, I can go through, anything else you would add to that?
Well, I guess I would just say we have a long history of working with Lewis and Clark County entities. Hannah mentioned Habitat for Humanity. Michael O'Neill's been on the board at NeighborWorks Montana from Helena Housing Authority and has been very involved in the creation of many of the programs that NeighborWorks Montana does. And we've been lending here for a long time. So the loan officers know us, the banks know us, and frankly, they invest in us already. Opportunity Bank has invested significant funds, Glacier Bank. We have investments from a number of other financial institutions, including US Bank. We have had them from Wells Fargo over time. And a lot of those investments are what we call patient capital. So they invest the money in us knowing that we're going to lend it out and they're patient in us paying it back. So because we're a CDFI, we work with all the local financial institutions already that would be making the first mortgages, and we have a process in place for that. And then we've lent on a number of multifamily projects here in Helena, and we often do what's the most risky lending, which is we lend pre-development money. So we have to know the project, we have to know who's doing it, what is going to be happening, and we lend that money before anybody else comes in and basically take the risk with the developer. And we've done quite a few of those in this area.
Let me ask you that. Well, I can see in your sheet here that, there's multiple local folks, and I see the Montana Business Assistance Connection and Valley Bank. You got folks from the state, of course, Helena Housing. So your local connections, you talked about Rocky already, Rocky Mountain Development Council, and that connection. Other counties in the state that have signed on with you? You talked about proposing 30 counties. Have some others jumped in?
Yes, we've got resolutions signed from Judith Basin, Lincoln County, Gallatin. Intentions from Missoula as well, not a resolution yet.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, other questions? The last one I'd say is that talked a lot about the match. Your financial situation and your opportunity, your capability of coming up with that match. You're not concerned about that 3.5
Not concerned about it. That is what we've been doing for 25 years, raising capital and deploying it. Not concerned about that at all.
Okay. Any other questions at this point, commissioners? Please.
Question, you say you're not concerned about it, but you're not able to reveal where the money's coming from at this.
We would do this completely transparently. The
But you couldn't
investors.
tell us today where you're getting the money.
The investors that we have invested in us in the last month have been Intermountain Health, Montana Healthcare Foundation, and the Montana Community Foundation. So those would be the first ones we would approach in the event that we are told that you need to have match today, to say, would you be willing to redirect your investment to be matched for this program?
But you can't guarantee that that's where it would be. Is that right?
I mean, no.
All right. Mr. Chair, I almost think we're maybe have to have some questions answered before we can move forward with this. And I'm wondering if maybe we shouldn't delay this discussion for a couple of weeks so that we can find out if in fact both of these organizations have been accepted and then make a decision.
Commissioner, delaying and taking our time is not a problem. However, we have to make a decision by the end of the year, and I don't think by the end of the year they're going to know anything more than they know now. Other than they may have some of those match stuff identified, but in terms of being certified, that's not going to happen until January. So, and we have to make our decision prior to that.
I'd like to ask maybe about that. I just would have I get some indication that HAB might know in the next week or so if they're being accepted. Is that correct or not?
Well, we might call you back up for more questions unless you have a question for these guys, and then we'll.
I've got some.
Okay, so I will call Mr. Taylor back up if we have more questions for him. But I think what they're talking about is they're going to identify their match dollars. They won't go through the state process until January either. But if you'd come back up, Mr. Taylor, just identify yourself again for the record, and then you can answer Mr. Rolfe's questions, please.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, a couple clarifications. The Governor's Office of Economic Development has up until the statutory deadline to approve CROs. So it's not a gate at the end. So at any point in time through the application and review process, the Governor's Office can approve organizations as a CRO pending whatever conditions of approval may exist. We haven't seen what those look like yet, but we anticipate that our approval will be before the end of the year as applied to us as a CRO.
So January is the end of that time period, though?
Yeah, and then really, if you look at the statute, January 15th is really the drop dead decision making from the Governor's Office of Economic Development, and also in terms of where and how the $50 million will ultimately get deployed based on what counties do and do not opt into the process.
So if we didn't opt in till December 31st, for example, that they wouldn't have a clear idea of where that's going to go until sometime in January anyway. So I guess the timing stuff, talk why the timing piece is important here.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, what it really does is allows, counties to get started. Any county that's opted into the program, as soon as we get our approval at the state level, then we're off and running with our community engagement, looking how to get people into their homes, finishing up our lending products. And, we're about done with it anyways regarding underwriting, et cetera. That's why in Q1 we'll be up and operational. And then just as a clarification, and I apologize, the reason why I stepped out was to call the folks at HAB Development to ask whether or not I could actually disclose the source of our matching funds. And they authorized me to share that Northwestern Mutual is the source of our matching funds that we're applying and deploying across the state.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Payne.
I'm trying to figure out, okay, we don't have to put up any money. We just have to let these people put it up. Where's the downside for the county here? This is a black and white yes, we will participate or no, we will not. And then the secondary question is column A or column B.
Picking a partner.
Yeah.
Right.
So
You're absolutely right, Commissioner. It would be silly for us not to opt in. This is 3.5 million that would come to our community for more housing. And we just have to, our role is to opt in and choose a CRO. And so that is our evaluation today, or part of our evaluation today, is to say what CRO do we feel most comfortable moving forward with.
okay, and our taxpayers are not, it's not the taxpayer money that we are worrying about. I mean, when we were elected, we said, by golly, we're gonna look out for the taxpayer dollar, but that's not what this is.
Right. No, the state set aside $50 million, 3.5 million for our community. And if we don't opt in, we don't get that. For our community.
And this money is invested and homes are built, that creates more of a basis for our property taxes.
Correct.
If you've got a empty field out there, you know, it's one tax level, but if it's got 15 homes on it, it's gonna bring in more money so we can fund the services we need to.
Right. So
Okay.
we just have to pick a partner and pass a resolution that we're in. That's our
Okay, so
deal.
there is not a downside to getting the resolution passed today.
Well,
Fair.
today, I think if we move forward, I think what's on our agenda is just to say this is the next item on the agenda, select a community reinvestment organization. And then there would be another step down the road at a future meeting where a resolution would be brought to us to actually formalize that sometime between now and the end of the year. So
Okay.
today is the discussion and choosing, I guess, if we wanted to do that. And then we would have a resolution come before us in the next weeks.
Okay.
Commissioner Rolfe.
Question, if somebody could answer it. If the, what do I want to call it? The deed restriction restricts the value increase to 1% a year. Does that not push more, that would reduce the value for us to get taxes from that property and push the excess, any excess we need back on the existing property taxpayers?
Well, I'd say if we don't do it, we don't get any taxes at all. So if it's less because of the value of the home, but I don't know that the ultimate value of the home would change. Maybe it would. We'll
Got an
hear
expert.
about that.
Chairman, if I might answer that, it
Would
doesn't
you-
restrict the resale
Would
price.
you introduce?
Oh, I'm sorry,
yourself for the
Maureen
record?
Rude with NeighborWorks Montana. It doesn't restrict the resale price. All it restricts is the appreciation the borrower gets to keep. So the rest of it would go back to the fund from which the money came from, presumably to be rolled over into a new homeowner loan or to be used to repay investors. So
That's the revolving part of it.
that's the revolving part. So the deed restriction only basically says they have to repay that, and they are restricted as the borrower to 1% per year appreciation. The house still gets sold at market rate and taxed at market rate.
So,
Right?
so a house that may have only gone up 5% to the customer or to the buyer, but may have gone up 30% in inflation, is still going to be taxed at the 30% higher rate. 30%.
Mr. Chairman, the house would be taxed like any other house. That the financing has nothing to do with how it's taxed.
Mhm. All right.
Sorry, I just.
Thank you. No,
Hey, Mr. Chair, again, I think there's too many questions up in my mind to make a decision today. I'd like to delay it at least 2 weeks.
well, this item right here, Commissioner, that we're on right now is the presentation part. So the next item will be that if we want to make that decision. But right now, we're just discussing the program and having the presentations. Any other questions? And we'll open it to the public comment? If we'd like, okay, is there any public comment? Anybody like to jump in on the conversation and contribute to the confusion? No, not the confusion. Yes, clarity. Sorry.
Good morning,
Morning.
Commissioners. My name's Michael O'Neill. I'm Executive Director of the Helena Housing Authority, and I've been a board member for the NeighborWorks Montana going 20 plus years. It's an organization I'm proud to be associated with, and it's important for you to understand. I think the focus today, very importantly, is on Lewis and Clark County, and that's what your information that you have in front of you is focused on exclusively. NeighborWorks Montana operates throughout the state of Montana. So just imagine if you run these numbers for the 55 other counties and as to the impact this organization has had. Now, NeighborWorks Montana spun out of NeighborWorks Great Falls a little over 25 years ago. Initially, it was under the name the Montana Home Ownership Network. And so its primary and sole focus at that time was on home ownership. And through that created this statewide network of home buyer education and counselors and loan programs and revolving loan funds. And we switched to NeighborWorks Montana as we changed our additional focus on things like real estate development loans for things like affordable housing projects like the ones listed here. And so it's an organization that was formed and is supported by a whole network of community partners here in Lewis and Clark County and counties across the state of Montana. Under the kind of philosophy that we're better together, that NeighborWorks Montana is able, through a statewide network, to go out and get resources that then are used in communities across Montana. So it's made a big difference. I think this decision is a very important one in terms of you are making decisions about very limited state tax dollars that have been allocated to this community. And so that roughly $3.5 billion, and to be able to have the maximum benefit for your public, your citizens, for home buyers in Lewis and Clark County. Both now, again, the state has never really put forward $50 million of state funds for this purpose. So it's a big, we applaud the state for taking this step. But that's that you can, I mean, the question is what public dollars, what will bring the greatest public benefit? And in terms of trusting that ability to deliver to the citizens of Lewis and Clark County. And I would just say I would encourage you to take a look at the website at NeighborWorks Montana, which is nwmt.org. That will show you and really documents the relationships and the partnerships that have been built up all over this state with lenders and realtors and the Montana Board of Housing and HUD and USDA Rural Development and all the key players. And so they are, you know, if you're going to deploy home buyer assistance in this state, that lenders, large and small, have, you know, it's like Wells Fargo came to them and they had a large settlement that they had to implement in this state. And they said, can you do it? And they got it out the door in record time. They deployed it faster than almost any other state in the country, in fact. And so their ability to manage a program like this is documented. They've done it for 25 years, and really the history goes much further because of they spun out of Great Falls, NeighborWorks Great Falls. So would encourage support for, I think it's important that if you're going to pick an organization with a proven track record that you can trust will maximize the benefit to our county. NeighborWorks Montana is a clear, would be great to run this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Other folks that would like to make comment? Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Lori Lattis, and I'm the Executive Director of Rocky Mountain Development Council here in Helena. And I just wanted to speak in support of you putting your trust with NeighborWorks Montana for this program. I've been at Rocky for 11 and a half years, and NeighborWorks Montana has been a partner with Rocky since before my time there. We've got a housing counselor who works with their first-time homebuyers program. and does also financial counseling, credit and foreclosure counseling. They've also been a great partner for us when we've developed multifamily housing in the community. We've had bridge loans that I believe Maureen spoke about a few minutes ago that help us during the process of development when we need the cash flow to be available while we're waiting for the whole thing to close. They've been a great partner to us, and I trust them completely with this program, and I just wanted to let you know that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other public comment? Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Brian Obert. I'm the Executive Director of Montana Business Assistance Connection. We are the CRDC that represents Lewis and Clark County. Mr. Rolfe sits on our Board of Directors. I want to first start with the fact that before the time period, we do suggest that you do make a recommendation and a resolution. There is $50 million sitting there, and whenever we do public hearings, whenever we reach out to the public, housing, workforce, childcare, the three top issues going on. Cost of housing is also one of those things that is just out of control right now. We all understand it. What I do want to give you is some additional background of our understanding of where this bill came from, where it's at right now, and also our confusion on how we make this work. We're at the same point. Before the last legislative session, we were contacted by several individuals on different housing bills. One of those was the individual who was pushing House Bill 819. We discussed it with him, and he was very clear trying to talk about this creation of CRO, Community Reinvestment Organization, and that CRDCs could be or might be one of the primary locations to do that. We were very interested, being the CRDC that represents you in our region, on, again, this is a problem, is this a solution? We were a little shocked that this was the bill that made it through the legislative session, and then confused about some of the lack of direction that we saw within it. There was a subcommittee or a group that was brought together to try to iron out some of the difficulties with this. And there were a lot of heated meetings and a lot of heated discussions about how this could happen. And in the end, those meetings kind of came to a halt because we were struggling with the match component, which is what a lot of this conversation has been about. As an organization, we have looked at this. We talked about it at least twice at our Board of Directors meetings. As an organization, did we want to try to become a CRO? Again, if there's some way for us as an organization, MBAC, to be helpful in those areas that creates benefit for the community, taxable value, we were very interested. In our scheme of opportunity to find funds as the match, we could not see that we could get to a point that our organization had the wherewithal to do that. I would again suggest that before the time period comes up, you should be putting your hand into the game, because this is money that will make a difference in our community. Until we better understand where the match comes from and how, I'll be a little more clear, the why an investment would come in to want to jump into a home for potentially 20 years. We couldn't find an investor that would have that interest. Again, so we started looking at our local associations, our things like our school board, or our school association, or school foundations, who have a vested want for their teachers to potentially have home ownership. We saw that as an avenue, but again, for $3 million, that's a hard swing in our community. We're starting to get more details now about what that match looks like, and now knowing from Mr. Taylor of who the potential investor is, for us, that helps to understand the who. Now the why are they interested in this? Again, lots of questions. What we understand and what we made a recommendation to staff in our 3 counties is to definitely try to be a part of the program, but make sure you understand who is your partner and where their money is coming from, and then how that is deployed in the best interest for your stakeholders. So really, I'm here just saying right now, try to put a resolution in before the time period. We just had another meeting with Mr. Blaisdell, the Director of Economic Development. It does sound like if a CRO is not successful with their match, but you have selected them, from his point of view, that county that may be with the CRO that may not make it through the levels, that you have shown intent to be part of the program and would be able to then move to if there is other organizations standing. That was what we heard last week from Mr. Blaisdell. So our recommendation isn't necessarily on the who, but definitely do it because we have an issue. And this does give a very specific demographic within our community the ability to reach out of apartments and into actual home ownership, which creates wealth for them going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Obert. Is there other public comment? Other public comment at this time? Other public comments? Okay, commissioners, because this is a presentation, very briefly, each one of the organizations is here today. Give you an opportunity to close if you'd like. Mr. Taylor, if you want the opportunity to speak to the commission one more time after what you've heard, and then NeighborWorks will let you do the same, but briefly, if you could, please.
Mr. Chairman, Commission, Mark Taylor, I guess in a nutshell, we're the bird in the hand. We have the money today. There's no question about it. We can deploy those funds for the benefit of the people in this community. We are engaging people at a local level. I mentioned, Dick Anderson Construction. We're actually having conversations about a statewide footprint or role for them, given their offices all around across the state. In terms of, there's a lot of communities that, frankly, the inventory just doesn't physically exist today. We're involved in developments all across the state of Montana, including last night, one of our developments was approved up in Flathead County for 355 units. So we're serious players, to say the least. We're going to aggressively move forward with those counties that select us. And if you don't make a selection today, I'm happy to follow up with Ann on the conversations with the Governor's Office of Economic Development as to our ultimate approval as a CRO. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. NeighborWorks.
Really, I just wanted to, Hannah Tester, NeighborWorks Montana. Really, just wanted to appreciate, thank you for having us here today, reiterating NeighborWorks Montana's longstanding successful work in this space. We have the infrastructure, we have the capacity, we have the software, we have the expertise in-house to execute this program, and have been doing that for programs like this for, again, 25 plus years. We have the capacity and the ability to raise the match. And then we have even more capacity and ability to deploy the funding. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate everyone being here today. And because this was a presentation, we do not have a decision on this. But the next item on our agenda is to select a community reinvestment organization. So, Ann, if you'd like to introduce that again, and then we can have a discussion. Commissioner,
Can we
please.
take a 10-minute break?
Oh, you bet.
Okay.
Prior to this item, we'll take 10 minutes and reconvene here at 10:30. Thank you very much. Yeah, that Paul Tuss has tarnished my record. Okay, we are going to reconvene. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for the break, necessary break. We are on item number 4 on the agenda, which is selection of Community Reinvestment Organization. Again, good morning.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, good morning again. Ann McCauley, Director of Grants and Purchasing. So following the presentations from HAB Development and NeighborWorks Montana, the next item is selection of a Community Reinvestment Organization for Lewis and Clark County. As provided in the bill, House Bill 19 and subsequent MCA, both of these organizations meet the eligibility requirements as laid out in that legislation. Following selection of a Community Reinvestment Organization, I'll develop and bring forward a resolution naming that selected entity for a later date for final approval.
Okay, questions for Ann at this time? So just a clarification question. You just said in your presentation there that both of these organizations are qualified by the state for this designation or to be picked by a county essentially at this point, right?
Yes, as I read it, they are both 501c3 organizations, which is an eligible entity underneath that requirement. One final note, it is $3,610,837, which is the amount of money allocated to Lewis and Clark County.
Okay, well, I'm going to start saying approximately 3.7 million then.
3.6, a little over 3.6.
Commissioner Rolfe.
Excuse me, now if some counties don't sign on, then their allotted share would probably be added to everybody else's. So it could be a little bit more than that. Is that right?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Rolfe, that's the way I understand it. I don't know how that's going to happen, but yes, I think that's a reasonable assumption that it could be more than that.
Okay.
All right.
Commissioners, any further questions about what we've heard today? And this is an action item. So again, we will take public comment. So is there any public comment? Any public comment? All right, commissioners, no public comment. How about some discussion and how you'd like to move forward?
Mr. Chair, I just think there's a lot of things here, more to this than I anticipated. I'd like to see us delay a decision. Sounds like we have to have a decision if we're going to go forward by the end of December. If we could move our decision to that first week of December, I think that would be helpful to really get a clear understanding. And so I would move that we move to a decision on December the 5th, say.
Well, Commissioner, thank you for the motion, but prior to that motion, I wanted to see if there's any further discussion by the commission, and then please, I'll give you opportunity to make that motion. Is that okay?
All right.
All right. So further discussion about what we heard today.
I recognize the concerns that Commissioner Rolfe has on this. And it does seem sort of like we're jumping into the creek without figuring out if there's a hole or deep enough for us or what. So this question isn't, are we going to select a CRO? This is which one.
Right.
And so I think we need to make sure, I mean, if Commissioner Rolfe has concerns and reservations about participating in this opportunity to have 2.6 million, what did you say?
3.6.
3.6 million. And I asked what the downside was. I'm not seeing it, and whether we have more information or not. I just think we need to get moving on this. The legislature is coming to town. I mean, this is scary stuff here. Okay, so I'm before we decide to postpone this for another 2 weeks, Commissioner Rolfe, what kind of information would you be asking these folks to provide for us?
Well, we did get some clarification, no question about it. But I just felt I was uncertain. We've got one group that says they've got the money in place and can move forward immediately. I think that's an advantage. The other group says they're near to have that, but it's not nailed down yet. I just would like to have an opportunity for everyone to. I feel like that if we're going to do it, we need to move forward and try to get some workforce housing done as soon as possible. And maybe we can make a decision today. I was just thinking that maybe that everybody would want to have a little extra time to think about it.
So from my perspective, I kind of tried to do my due diligence ahead of time for the most part. There's a few things I learned today, and appreciate the presentations and all of that. But I think I understand the law and what we have to do. We have an opportunity for $3.6 million to come into our community to do this work. Both of these organizations are qualified. Both of these organizations, I have no question whether they could come up with the match. I think they both can come up with the match. So for me, it comes down to the questions that I asked. I would like to, focus on those that have been doing this on a regular basis, that it's more homegrown. We have a lot of local people that have been working on these efforts for a long time, getting people into affordable housing and doing affordable housing developments and making sure that happens in our community. So I have nothing against our friends from Billings. I think they do a fine job, but from my perspective, I really think that our local folks, I think there's relationships already established with not only lending institutions, but our business assistance connections, our Rocky Mountain Development Council, which is our HRDC in the community. They've proven that they can bring match to the table. They've done projects. There's a whole list of completed and functional projects that have been done and are functional in the community and have served a lot of people. That question of why, I thought that was a really good one by Mr. Obert. So if this is an opportunity for investment and getting returns or those kinds of things versus, I see NeighborWorks Montana as trying to serve the community and get people into housing and into those first time housing situations and get people step up. That would happen with either organization, but that why question is one that concerns me or that I have interest in. So if I had to choose today, I would be moving with NeighborWorks Montana. I think they have shown that they can do that. Now, if there are questions, and we still have questions, we don't have to make a decision today, but I would not like to delay. I would like other decisions. We have a very difficult and challenging, lots of information. For example, a subdivision that comes before us. We set a time for 1 week from the date that we hear it to make a decision. So I'd like to make a decision within the next week. Next Tuesday, we have a meeting. Even Thursday, we could do Thursday or next Tuesday if we're going to delay. I'm ready to make a decision today. But if my fellow commissioners are not, I'm happy to honor that time. But I want to set a date sooner rather than later if possible, commissioners. So please.
It always amazes me how that right-wing Republican down there and this left-wing liberal Democrat, we come together. I think I agree with you. This is going to work out. I too am, with all due respect to our Billings friends, I'm a lot more comfortable dealing with NeighborWorks Montana because we not only have worked with the entities, I think Tom is on the board of, I mean, these are people we've dealt with before, and if I need to pick up the phone and talk to somebody, not the, and I hesitate to use the word mouthpiece, but Mark, that's kind of what you are. We need to get something done. We can get them on the phone or walk across the street or see them in the grocery store. And I am comfortable making a decision today. If we're going to do this, then let's keep it here where we have our kind of finger on the pulse of what's going on at NeighborWorks. Are you on the NeighborWorks board, Tom? You're on the
MBAC.
MBAC. Okay,
MBAC.
sorry. I don't do very well with acronyms. So that'd be my position. And if you want to put it off till Thursday, this Thursday, we probably could do that if that would make it more comfortable for Tom.
Well, I guess, go ahead.
Oh, Thursday, you won't be here, right?
No.
You won't be here. So Tuesday would be our next opportunity for all three of us to be together. Commissioner Payne, because there are two of us that are willing to move forward and we've kind of said our piece, we could surely do that. But we have really tried to be that beacon of light in our politics. And because Commissioner Rolfe asked for more time, whether we're ready to move forward or not, I'm willing to honor that. And if you'd be okay with making a decision on Tuesday, unless you're ready to
A
move
week from,
forward.
a week from today?
Yep, unless you're ready to move forward today. We're both ready to move forward today, but if you're not, we will honor that and postpone until Tuesday.
I'd like to take a look at it in a week.
Okay. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay. So you've heard kind of the intent of the majority at this point, but there is some just not full comfort among the commissioners. And so we like to move forward together and honor that. And I like to honor that. And so Commissioner Rolfe, you started a motion there. Maybe you could change the date and move on with it again if you're willing.
All right. So a week from today would be the 26th.
Correct.
I would move that we leave this item open and make a decision on this item on the 26th.
Second.
Moved and seconded to postpone decision on this item until the 26th of November at a regular scheduled meeting. Commissioners, any further discussion about that? I really appreciate, I want to thank everybody for being here today and adding to the conversation. It's been a long discussion. We really appreciate the comment and thank you to both entities as well. We will have this on our agenda on the 26th and we'll have another opportunity for public comment there as well. So commissioners, with that, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. All right, next item on the agenda. We'll give folks, I'll talk slowly so we can give folks an opportunity to go if they need to go. Next item on the agenda is a grant application to the Montana Department of Transportation. Good morning, Mr. Karlin.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. For the record, I am Dan Karlin, County Engineer. And today we're going to talk about a request to authorize the submission of an SB 536 Quick Fix Repairs Grant Request to MDT, or Montana Department of Transportation. 3 weeks ago, Public Works did several routine bridge evaluations with our consultant throughout the county. We came across a bridge showing signs of trouble at its last inspection, but it was still in adequate condition. The superstructure is comprised of 7 double T integral deck girders. Upon our site visit, the concrete popped off of the bottom of the tension cord of one of the T's, revealing corroding reinforcing steel. It is a short span bridge with vertical concrete abutments that are in very good condition. Fortunately, it's a redundant system, but I feel we need to act in the near term to replace the superstructure, as the remaining 6 double T's are showing signs of the same problem. The estimated cost to replace the superstructure is $104,255. Because this issue was unknown to us, it was not budgeted in the FY25 bridge budget. We understand that the Montana Department of Transportation, or MDT, has approximately $8 million remaining in the SB 536 grant program for quick fix repairs. Conversations with MACO and MDT, who co-run the program, have indicated that this project and its costs are within the guidelines for the grant program. This grant, if received, will provide 100% of the funds necessary to complete this project. Staff recommends that the Board of County Commissioners authorize the staff to submit the grant request to MDT and the chair to sign the letter of request to accompany the application. And I'm guessing I'm going to have a question on what a double T is. So
Yeah, well, there you go. You asked one. I'm going to throw just a compliment out there. First of all, one to you and Public Works for bringing this forward. But we're usually fussy about the state and their partnership, but this is another good thing that they did. I think the legislature did set this money aside for these urgent
Emergency.
problems for inadequate bridges and the like. So this dollars that quick fix repair application, I guess is what we're calling it. So thank you to the legislature and to Montana for doing that. Might be the only compliment they get for a while. They're getting one today. Commissioners, questions? Any questions? All right, the T thing.
all right, so a double T, if you think about the letter T, there's one stem on that. So a double T has two stems across, for the top there. And those are what actually carry the load. So there is reinforcing steel in the lower portion of that is being pulled in tension. That is what is corroding. That is what carries the load of the bridge. So we have 7 of those specific beams on this bridge. One of them has popped the bottom concrete, exposing that steel, which is corroding. About 60% of those stems are showing the same, I don't want to call it a failure, but the same situation. So we want to address that before it does become a failure.
Thank you. Now questions, please.
So, Dan, does that include, you're going to fix all of you said 6 T structures for 104,000?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Payne, that's correct. So they're a system. Each one is 4 feet wide of deck space. In order to repair that, it would be very extensive and very expensive. So rather than try to fix the failure, it's going to be cheaper and more efficient and longer lasting to replace the entire superstructure, which is from the foundation up. So what we would like to do is replace that with a new slab superstructure on top of the existing foundation. That's the proposed fix.
The proposed fix is not to do anything about the condition of the steel that is holding this up?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Payne, so the foundation itself is in good shape. The superstructure is comprised of these 7 double T beams. We want to remove them and demo them out completely and replace them with a brand new superstructure. The bridge itself is about 21 feet long in span, so we propose to just replace that, which would extend the life significantly, 50 to 75 years. So.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
Question,
Please.
I know there's a fair amount of traffic on that bridge. How long are we going to have do we have a usable detour while it's in place, while the work's being done, and how long do you estimate it's going to take?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Rolfe, so the plan is to install a detour. If location of this bridge, I suppose, would be helpful. So Nelson Road coming out of York, as it goes down, it gets to what's been called the cribbage capital of the world there. There's a bridge right before it. It's not even a quarter mile away from that intersection at the T. That's the bridge we're talking about. That's only one way in, one way out. So we will have to establish a detour. Public Works County has a structure that we have for just this occasion for short-term temporary detours. We'd place that, we would build a road to it, It'll be about 1,100 feet long on my estimation. We have the cost of that included in our estimate in this application. So we would maintain full-time two-way traffic throughout the time frame of the replacement. I would judge there's no forming of any concrete or pouring of any concrete with this system. There is some grouting, but I think we can probably accomplish it in 2 to 3 weeks. So.
Mr. Chair, we've obviously got some other bridges that are problem bridges right now. I think it's pretty amazing that you think you can get this done in a short period of time, and have located some money to do that. We're probably going to have to be looking at some other ones too. So,
yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Rolfe, yeah, the key to this submission is the cost is relatively low in comparison to the one I think you're referring to. Also, the fact that we have this temporary detour is helpful for this bridge, but this is the specific reason we have it. The way we have it is for the short term, being able to move it when we need to. Yeah, it's definitely an asset.
It's also a short span.
Correct.
Our temporary bridge has limits, right? For span.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, yes, it's about a 50-foot span temporary bridge.
Yeah, gotcha. That helps understand. Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate it and looking forward to it. It's also, I think, something that we will do for the most part ourselves, right? Internal project.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, yes. So the proposal is for the county bridge crews to install the detour structure, demo the bridge, place the bridge. We have some excavating to do. That's all well within their wheelhouse.
Yep.
I have the ability to do the design on this myself, so I'll be able to do that in-house.
It's all very much reflected in the cost here. You
Very
can
much
tell
so.
it's an internal
Yes.
project
Yes,
versus
all completely
an
internal.
external project.
With the exception of a crane, we'll have to contract out crane services.
Thank you. Any other questions, Commissioners? How about public comment on this item? Any public comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, is there a motion, please, Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the grant application to the Montana Department of Transportation as presented by Dan Karlin.
second, Mr. Chair.
Moved and seconded to approve the grant application as presented. Further discussion, Commissioners? Just want to thank you again for coming up with a solution. Thanks to the state of Montana for having this available. I'm glad that we can go after these dollars, and I hope that we are successful. I'm assuming we're going to be.
You bet.
Anything else, Commissioners? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much. All right. Thanks for your patience today as well. We're on to the next item on the agenda, which is a grant award amendment to Lewis and Clark Public Health from the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. I'm Sarah Sandow, the Community Health Promotion Division Administrator from Lewis and Clark Public Health. Today, I have before you a grant award amendment from the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services for the Montana Injury Prevention Program for the amount of $60,000 for September 1st, 2024 through July 31st, 2025. Safer Communities Montana advocates for suicide prevention in Lewis and Clark, Broadwater, and Jefferson counties through collaboration with the firearm and pharmaceutical communities to reduce lethal means access by people at risk. Lethal means refers to items people might use to take their lives, which include medication and firearms. We have representatives from the three-county region on the coalition, along with support from the local advisory councils and the health departments in those other counties. Safer Communities Montana provides appropriate suicide prevention tools and training to pharmacies, firearm-related businesses, healthcare providers, and community members at large. The group started in 2020, and we have received this funding for the past 3 years, this being the 4th year and the final year, as we would assume. Some goals for the Safer Communities Montana group this year include promoting a toolkit that outlines the work the group has done so far so that we can promote it to other counties to see if they are interested as well to continue to spread the good work and things that we have learned along the way. The group also hopes to further outreach with the pharmaceutical and firearm retailers in conversations around suicide prevention. This funding opportunity would provide financial resources for website improvements, printing and distributing for the toolkit, media for the effort. You may have heard our commercials on the TV, or you may have heard our radio ads. And there's also some staff time for the coordinator on this project, and additional gun locks and deterra. Deterra is a way to safely dispose of unused medications that might be sitting in someone's cabinets. Deterra and gun locks are suicide prevention tools because safe storage can give people a few extra minutes for reconsideration, and that saves lives. Staff recommends approval, and I'm here for questions.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. Thank you very much. Questions, commissioners? Okay. Yes, like you said, we've been doing this for a long time. It's just the next iteration of this and group of funds coming in. So thank you so much. How about public comment on this item? How about public comment? Any public comment? Hearing none. Commissioners, is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I'd move to approve the grant award amendment to Lewis and Clark Public Health from the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services, as explained by Ms. Sandow.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the grant award amendment as presented. Further discussion, Commissioner.
I just would like to take a minute and thank Ms. Sandow and other members of the Health Department for the good work they're doing in suicide prevention. I think it's critical work, and you're really out there trying to get the word out. Thank you.
Commissioner Rolfe, I would agree with you and second that. Thank you so much. This is really important work. And as you described in your presentation, the connections in the community and getting those partners that make sense and working together makes a difference. So thank you. Anything else? All right. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda is public comment on any item that is under the jurisdiction of the commission, but not on today's agenda. Any public comment? Any public comment? Seeing no public come forward, commissioners, thank you for a good meeting. We will stand adjourned. Right. Goodness gracious, on we go, huh?